Hey everyone, welcome to this week's edition of the COMM 2095. I want to get right into this really because this is something that has really always kind of irked me, especially having worked in television on the side of being a reporter, an anchor, a producer, and then also now being on the side of looking at what's going and coming at me on the news. We talked about the two-step flow theory and how opinion leaders and opinion hosts then sort of dilute a message and then it finally gets back to us and it interferes on what we really need to know, which are the facts. Facts can be twisted in many ways, as we've seen in politics lately, as we see in entertainment, in sports, in minor news in general. They're twisted in some way. So, how can we prevent making sure that we aren't getting diluted as we get news? And that really takes a lot of effort in some ways because in today's world, we have so many outlets. You have radio, television, still have the newspaper, magazines, you have talk radio, you have satellite radio, you have Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, all the social channels, you have blogs, you have websites, video, all of these things coming at us that are a good thing. But then when we're also trying to decide what the truth is, it can really get in the way. When I was growing up, I had television, radio, and a newspaper and magazines. And the newspaper would have an opinion section, totally for opinion. And then it would have section A, which was the news, top stories. You're getting stories from the reporters, etc. And then you'd have television, local and national news, and you'd have radio, which was in many cases news updates, maybe the odd news talk program, but most of it was straight to the consumer. Again, now we are seeing it much differently. Because of all the things that we have to get in our way, we have allowed the opinion leaders on air to tell us what we should believe is true. Now, that's not saying everybody believes what someone on the radio or a network news program at night tells you, but we are much less apt to actually dig for a story because we don't have the time. We're all going about reading and disseminating news in a way that is sort of the opposite of what you need to know. Instead of letting us find the information and getting it by reading, we want it yesterday. And that's why the two-step flow theory, in my opinion, nowadays is much more prevalent than it was 20, 30 years ago, even 15 years ago, per se. Think about it this way when we're talking about news. If I have a charitable event that I'm holding, if it's a walk to benefit breast cancer, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do my traditional public relations. I'm going to send out information. I'm going to get the information out to the news and the media so they can cover it. But then I may end up getting a spot to be interviewed on a news talk show, an opinion show. And they start asking me questions about when the event is. So there's the news right there. But then that opinion leader starts asking questions saying, we've seen a lot of information lately about breast cancer research and how the money at these events don't necessarily go for research. They go to product. They go to the people that are sponsoring. How can you tell us that what you're doing is actually going to be a real event and not some benefit for the corporations? Right there is where the opinion leader has now turned it from an actual news and information story to his agenda or her agenda. And that's where the two-step flow theory really plays into effect. News Talk Radio has done a really good job of this, is making sure opinions are not necessarily based in the facts. They may say, this organization isn't right because I read something. Instead of us finding out and deciding what's right, we let that two-step flow theory of the news, then the information and opinion leaders disseminate it to us. How can we do a better job? Look for the truth. That's the bottom line. And if we're not seeking out the truth, we are then allowing ourselves to get caught up in the vacuum of opinion. Yes, opinion should be based in fact. However, in these days, it's not the case. We are seeing much more opinion than be passed off as fact, and that's not the way it should go. So again, in the discussion this week, I hope you'll add your opinion as to why should we place the blame at the media or ourselves, and that's what I want to know too.